The four great conquerors, Alexander, Caesar, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon. Four men who changed the world with their dreams and ambitions. Imagine a man who wept because conquering 2 million square miles wasn't enough for him. This man is Alexander the Great, who cared about nothing but conquering the world. He led his army into battle without fear of defeat, as if he were immortal. And why wouldn't he think so? For 10 years, he won victory after victory. His men were tired and wanted to return home, but Alexander cared neither for riches nor ruling. He only cared about conquering. Everything was going well for him until he hit a wall in India. He lost many men while fighting Porus, his most challenging battle. He was reportedly wounded, and his horse died in battle. His men, tired and weak, faced a fresh and ready Indian army. They begged Alexander to call it a day. Reluctantly, Alexander, who never listened to anyone, was forced to comply. This was the beginning of his end. Known for his drinking habit, he overdid it one night and fell seriously ill. His opportunistic generals gathered to decide who would take over after his death. Alexander said, "To the strongest," triggering a war between his generals that lasted nearly 50 years. The Macedonian Empire was broken into pieces, but for Alexander it was never about Macedonia. It was always about Alexander. Next, we have the fanboy of Alexander, Gaius Julius Caesar. While Alexander wept because he had no more worlds to conquer, Caesar is reported to have burst into tears while reading about Alexander's exploits, saying, "At my age, he had conquered Darius, but I have achieved nothing." Like his idol, Caesar turned out to be self-obsessed and narcissistic. Once he gained significant power as a general and statesman, he undermined the Roman Republic and declared himself dictator perpetuo, dictator in perpetuity. He wasn't shy about it either, reportedly saying, "If you must break the law, do it to seize power. In all other cases, observe it." Fearing he would establish a monarchy and erode their authority, a group of 60 senators assassinated Caesar on March 15, 44 BC, stabbing him 23 times. The last thing Caesar saw was his adopted son and trusted ally, Marcus Brutus, among the assailants. Moving to the medieval era, we find Genghis Khan, the beast of the East. He managed to conquer twice as much land as Alexander and aimed to bring the whole world under one sword. Unlike Alexander or Caesar, he didn't see himself as a god or a messiah. He knew he was a tyrant and openly boasted about it, saying, "The greatest happiness is to scatter your enemy, drive him before you, see his cities reduced to ashes, see those who love him shrouded in tears, and to gather into your bosom his wives and daughters." His death is shrouded in mystery. Some say he fell victim to the bubonic plague, others claim he was shot on horseback, and another account says he was fatally castrated by a princess he had forcibly kept as a concubine. His death wasn't well documented because it was meant to be a secret. Before dying, Khan instructed his followers to keep his death a secret, as the Mongols were in the midst of conquering the Western Shia Empire. His funeral procession was kept secret by slaughtering anyone who crossed their path. Lastly, perhaps the greatest conqueror of all, Napoleon Bonaparte. The transition from swords and spears to artillery had taken place, and Napoleon was an undisputed genius in the art of war. Although he became emperor in the name of defending revolutionary France, his ambitions carried him far beyond. He considered himself an artist of war, reportedly saying, "I love power, but it is as an artist that I love it." To him, the battlefield was a painting, and he was the artist drawing it. His power of concentration and memory for details were enormous. During a campaign in 1805, when a subordinate couldn't locate his division, Napoleon, without referring to maps, informed the officer of the unit's present location, where it would be for the next 3 nights, the status and strength of the unit, and the subordinate's military record. He swept through Europe and the Mediterranean with his forces moving swiftly and loudly. However, the stakes got higher, the death toll mounted, and battles became bloodier. Eventually, he was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815 and captured by the British. He wasn't sentenced to death, as the British didn't want him to die a martyr. Instead, they placed him under house arrest on a remote island. He lived out his days in isolation and denial, holding dinner parties where men were expected to wear military dress and women in evening gowns. Years of isolation took a toll on him, and he died on May 5, 1821, making his last confession. France, the army, head of the army, Josephine, expressing everything dear to him, his country, his military career, and his wife, Josephine. Conclusion. The four great conquerors left this world under different circumstances. One died of sudden illness. Another was killed by his own men. An arrow took down Genghis Khan, and the artist died in captivity. Yet they all had one thing in common. They all died desiring more. So, what are your thoughts? Let's discuss it in the comments section. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe.